Well, good day to you folks. Jeff DeVerter here, Chief Technology Evangelist here at Rackspace Technology. And welcome to Rackspace Live. So glad that you are here enjoying, hopefully, this midday. If you're in the States, it's probably sometime around that. If not, well, it's either early or really, really late. So, really excited to be here with you today. You're going to really enjoy it. We have brought Rackspace's new, not very much new. He's about 3 months into it, but CTO to have a conversation with us. Guys, if you want to get a hold of us, a couple of things. You've been seeing some stuff fly around the bottom. First of all, introduce yourselves in the comments wherever you are, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn. We're on all of those things. And also, if you want to get a hold of us, you got some feedback for us? You got an idea? Maybe you want to be on the program. Send us an email at solve@rackspace.com. I get that directly, as well as the whole production team, Megan and Daniel, and anybody else we can find who wants to help out. So feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Hey, we got Paul from Virginia. Hey, everyone, be like Paul. Introduce yourselves. Paul, glad you are taking your midday to hang out with us here at Rackspace Live. This is really going to be a enjoyable conversation. And looks like we've got Herman is here as well. And we've got Rangu from Salesforce in New Jersey. We love us some Salesforce. Sarvesh from India. India, you're up late, but we're glad that you're here. Mudar from New Delhi. Oh, guys, URLs are flooding in now. So glad that you're here. Hey, let's jump really quick into a bit of a news story. Always like to lead in with one of those. Before we bring Srini up, let me find the button to click. Come on. There we go. Gert is here. Gert, aren't you supposed to be working? I'm glad that you're here anyway. All right. So with that, let me click this and do that and do that. There we are. Hey, interesting article. It comes out of a bit of research that was done by a company called Stira Inc. And ultimately, what they're finding is that cloud native adoption is shifting security responsibility across teams. Now, if you're in development, if you're in IT, you know that this is changing. In fact, on April 7th, we're going to do a whole Cloud Talk Live on this topic. We've got some experts, some security and development experts coming in to have the conversation about how to best secure your infrastructure as code. You know, we're talking about infrastructure, not in the context of big server boxes and routers and all the things we used to, well, quite literally be able to wrap our arms around. Now we've got to do that through the whole development process, through the DevOps process, as that infrastructure now exists in the context of code. So you having challenges with that? How are you solving for that? Maybe comment and let us know. I would love to hear how your company is dealing with securing infrastructure as code. Hey, somebody from West Texas, good old Lubbock is here. Glad that you have joined us today. Sorry, a little fast on the buttons. Well, as I mentioned, this is really going to be a great episode as I have brought in today Mr. Srini Koushik. And Srini is Rackspace's CTO. I say new because he is the latest one who has joined us here. Joined us at the end of December and making a huge impact here at Rackspace. And I am anxious to let you get to know him. He's somebody that you're going to be both seeing and hearing a lot of. I mentioned hearing because we have recorded a podcast that's going to come out. Well, I have to see if Daniel and I win the arm wrestle. It's either going to be later this week or maybe first part of next week. And we've just got a lot of content coming out. We don't want to run you guys over. But Daniel, why don't we go ahead and bring Srini up onto the stage and let's introduce him to the world. Srini, welcome to Rackspace Live.
Jeff, thank you, man. This is great to be on Rackspace Live. This is an amazing forum that you guys run.
Oh, we got a lot of good folks here. You can see it's a global audience. I'm sure they've got tons of questions for you. Somebody's here from Atlanta as well. Joseph Tui. Hey, Joseph, glad that you're here as well. But and you know who else I'm glad is here, Srini, is you. I'm so glad you joined up with us. You know, you've had a really interesting career. And it has really manifested itself as we've seen you, kind of start to put a bit of your fingerprint on Rackspace. And guys, I'm sure out there in the world, as you've seen different, senior leaders come into organizations, a lot of times they sometimes can be a bit of a bull in a china shop. But Srini, you've taken like the opposite approach to that. You have taken the time to get to know your people now and to find strengths and how you encourage those strengths. How about a little bit about your philosophy of coming in and helping to drive a company forward?
Yeah. Look, Jeff, again, the pleasure to be here. Right? To me, uh, coming into a new role, always like you've got to kind of assess the situation and then find out what's the best way to do that. And to do the best way you know what you're getting into and the people that you work with is to take the time to listen. And I think once you're able to listen, once you're able to understand and build those initial relationships, then you can start building that guiding coalition that people talk about that essentially help drive the company forward. I always run into young leaders who are very, very good, but they take it upon themselves and think that I've got to do this. And the reality is, the sooner people realize that this is a team, and the
Yeah,
more you can get the team behind you and drive it,
right.
the higher your chances of success. So that's the approach that I've taken walking in, and it's the philosophy. And I'd say, Jeff, the other part to add to it is, if you'd seen me in similar roles 20 years ago,
Yeah,
um, I would say I've evolved. Right? That's not like if you talk to people from earlier in my career, they'd say like, look, some of the things don't change, but one of the things that I've learned from really good leaders,
mm,
understood how they operated and adapted into my style, is this whole listen first, right? Just go in, because there's a lot of really good things that go on within any organization, and the more you can understand it and tap into it, the better your chances are of driving change.
yeah. So you're alluding to the fact this isn't your first rodeo. You've been in various different technical positions. You've had leadership positions. You started and had a good run with IBM as a distinguished engineer over there, and that has slowly kind of led you down the road of different CTOs, CIOs, even a CEO, a stint as CEO for a little while. But there are a lot of folks who, as they see people moving deeper into leadership, a little
Mhm,
farther from the tech. So let's talk
mhm.
about a little bit. How do you stay close to the tech? And by the way, just got to say hi to Clark Kent. He's a regular from San Antonio. He's in a lot of these. So Clark, I'm glad you're here today. But Srini, how do you stay close to the tech when you're in all these executive leadership meetings? And I know there's a lot of them.
Look, I think this is one that I've been. It's been ingrained in me right from the start of my career. I've always been a technologist, and when somebody asks me, like, what is your true strength? I'd say
Yeah,
I'm an architect, right? I tend to kind of step back, look at things, and look at the implications of making certain decisions, and then understand how to go out and build it. That's what I started off as. Like, initially, you're architecting code, like, for a specific module in something, all the way up to software applications that you're building, to really putting together these complex systems integration things that are coming in. And in order to be an architect, it is actually important that you have that breadth of experience, right?
yeah,
When you think about home building or any of those things, you have to know how the electrical thing has to fit into your layout, and you have to lay out those standards. And so it's very similar when you think about computers. Any architect needs to be focused on being broad first, and then you decide where you want to establish your T-shaped skills, right? Have the
yeah.
breadth, and then where do you want to specialize? And that's something that I've done all through. And I would say the market has been moving with me, right?
Hmm.
30 years ago, 25 years ago, that when I picked it up, there was a clear distinction between the people who were technical and the people
Mhm.
who I call general managers. And it's not in a negative way. It's just general manager, meaning I need to
Just
know
a
a
different
lot of
role.
things about a business. It's a
Yeah.
different role. Um, as you start, going through the last 2 decades, more specifically into the last 5 years, 5 to 10 years, as tech has become more important in every industry, you're seeing a lot more technologists become CEOs, CIOs, and CTOs, right?
Yeah.
And that, I think, is a trend that's going to continue. And in fact, it's going to become even more important, because in the future, I don't think you're going to find CEOs who can say like, yeah, tech is not my my strength. It's Jeff. It's similar to like I see so many people. There was an amazing book that was written called Innumeracy, and the whole premise was nobody likes to say I'm illiterate, right? But they're all very comfortable saying, hey, I'm not a math guy. I don't understand the numbers. So the same way, I think that when you translate it over to this, I think technical illiteracy is not going to be acceptable in any leadership position. So I think
It's
the
not
fact that you're
acceptable. It's
comfortable,
just not an option anymore either.
it's
I
not
mean,
an
we
option
use the
anymore, right? Yeah, and so to me, it's a personal imperative to stay relevant in the technology, learn
yeah.
broad, spend the time to understand specific technologies so that you can make better decisions. And I think that's uh, I encourage everyone to like look, if you learned something yesterday, that's great. That was good for yesterday. As the Marines say, like the only easy day was yesterday. Today's a different day. Right? Today's a different day, and like technology has changed, and we got to kind of keep ourselves nimble, right, and learn.
Yeah, when I came back to Rackspace in 2020, a friend of mine had posted something on Facebook, and I'm not one of these guys who will, print a lot of stuff out, but this one I did print and put in the cubicle, and it said, "Success is never owned; it's rented, and the rent is due every single day."
Yeah,
Which
that's
is,
an amazing quote. I need to remember that.
yeah, if you could put your head on the pillow at night and be happy about what you did, you kind of have to forget that feeling when you wake up in the morning because
Yeah,
the treadmill starts again. But that's also the opportunity. I mean, we can look at this from a very negative aspect of, oh,
yeah,
we got to do it again, or what an opportunity. I mean, you make the
yeah,
comment that that technical illiteracy really just isn't an option anymore, and that ultimately, I think, goes back to the fact that every problem, and we're cautioned not to say always and nevers, but I think we can
mhm,
say always in this case. Technology always has a part in the solution to almost every problem.
right.
Now, sometimes technology is the problem, but whatever the business problem is, technology absolutely plays in. And to not be well versed in it, I mean, you're doing yourself and your organization a
Right,
disservice.
right. And that philosophy of continuous learning, um, it's all about the process. Like once you learn how to enjoy it, like I really read from multiple different sources. The other day, I
Mm,
was just picking up a book that was sitting in the doctor's office and starting to read it on like they actually were talking about how memories are stored, right? And it's like, oh, fascinating. I need to kind of go
yeah,
back and look at it and see if I can make connections. So I think if we as technologists, just as we as human beings, get to learn quite a lot, just make learning a part of the everyday thing. Just
yeah,
spend 30 minutes, spend an hour just thinking about what you can do and learn whatever ignites your passion, right? To me, it's technology. For me, it's technology. For someone else, it may be how do you kind of engage with people and build deep relationships, right? And
yeah.
so whatever ignites your passion, spend the time learning more about it, and that will serve you in good stead going forward. Yeah,
And we have so many more opportunities these days to not only learn, but then to ultimately, ideally, if we've learned it, then to apply it. I mean, whether it is you've got a 10 or 15-minute drive across town, podcast
right.
opportunity.
Hmm.
You've got 30 minutes at the end of the day. I find myself opening YouTube and watching a TED talk or watching, you know, okay, transparency. I was watching a 30-minute video on how to weld because, I'm weird that way. But learn something new every day.
Yeah,
But let's talk about learning for a second because you have, you're 20 some years into this technology career. You've had some really interesting stops along the way. And maybe just call out one or two. We won't do the whole resume, but
yeah,
maybe, you and I and talking about the time with Magellan Health or with the startup, you had some significant kind of moments that you walked away from. Maybe grab one or two of those and share them with our
yeah.
audience.
Well, just quickly, like as I look through it, I learned something from every role that I played. Right, I think my stint at IBM taught me how to be this continuous learner. Right, it's an amazing company that teaches you to learn broad, learn wide. Right, so it's something that I got from there, and that was built into the way I established it. When I got to Nationwide, again, a fantastic company as a CIO there, that's when I started to learn that it's like, when you were an individual contributor delivering things, that's one piece. But now, if you've got to get bigger things done, you got to figure out how to get it done with people,
Yeah.
through people, and bring them along, right? So the whole discipline of starting to listen more, starting to be more patient, right? Like, because if it's just in your bailiwick, you pretty much can work 20 hours. But when you're working with a team of people, you got to be sensitive to what they're going through. You got to be empathetic to their needs and then pull them along. So Nationwide gave me that. I think when I got to my startup, what was phenomenal was like prior to that point, everything that I did was in large organizations, Fortune 100, Fortune 50 companies. When I get to my startup, you're the one guy who starts it up, and you got to do everything from strategy to taking out the trash yourself, right? You've got to be able
That's
to
right.
go attract talent, because when you ask people to come work for you and you've got a name like IBM or Google or AWS in front of you, it's a heck of a lot more easier than, Srini, startup, like, can you come join me, right? And I
Yeah.
think that how do you always figured out how to scale up, how do you scale down before you scale up, is a big lesson that I learned from the startup, and that was amazing, right? Like, but one of the lessons I learned there is the networks are important. The people that you built, established, and worked with and built good relationships with, they will follow you for a cause, right? It's not always about the money. It's not always about the title. It is about getting something special done. And that was great for me to learn, because it's kind of helped me bring things in. Magellan, same thing. You move into a completely different industry, which is highly regulated, which
Mhm.
has the constraints that our healthcare system has in the United States. How do you still continue to innovate in that constrained environment, right? And along the way, you pick up these skills that allow you to come into a rack space, and you say, okay, so I've seen this challenge from many different angles, and every required some tailoring of your approach for leadership.
Yeah.
What is it that I have to tailor here to, you want to leverage the experience that you've had, but you also
Yep.
want to make sure that it is tailored for the situation you're in. So
That's excellent. Hey, speaking of bringing people along, looks like you've got a fan out there. Where did he go? Samesh, was that Samesh? Do you remember Samesh?
I am pretty sure if I see his face, I'll remember. I appreciate
There
anyone.
he is. Yeah, Samesh Madhu. Yep. Actually, he's
Yep,
great to see you.
yeah.
I want to make sure we call that out call that out. Well, so Srini, you and I recorded a podcast. That podcast will be coming out. Guys, the only way to get that is if you subscribe to Cloud Talk. So pull out your phones while you're listening to us now and open up your podcast app of choice and subscribe to Cloud Talk. You'll maybe get an audio version of this one in there as well, but that'll be the next main podcast that will show up. And Srini, one of the things that I think about as you came in, so you come in with all this experience, and what was going through your mind the first time the phone rang and the recruiter said, or the opportunity came in and they said Rackspace. What came to mind?
Well, very simply put, Rackspace is, at least to me, was an easy one, because when I explain it to my friends and family and others, like, Rackspace is the OG cloud company. Right?
That's right.
This is the company that invented OpenStack. This is the company that invented managed services in a multi-tenant environment. This is the company that led the way right from the start. And I mentioned it to a audience a couple of days ago, where I said, like, just like in real life and in other fields, the best technology doesn't always win, right? Betamax versus VHS or any of those things. And
Yeah.
we just happened to be on that side where, like, even though you had better technology, it wasn't the one that took off. And what did take off, you just look around, it's what AWS does, and it's exactly what the public cloud companies are based off of. Most companies would have folded and left, packed their bags and said, "Yeah, we're not for this." This company pivoted, right, and
Yep.
not just once, but twice in its 20-plus-year career, 20-plus-year existence. So to me, that was important, because you're looking for a company that's not only innovative but resilient, because
Mm.
not things are not going to go your way all the time, and your ability to understand the change, adapt to it, and take that step forward. You always try to fall forward as opposed to falling back. That was critical. And so to me, that was an important component of it. And the second part is, the company doesn't become resilient without its people.
That's right.
And the culture, and the more I learned about the culture, the more I learned about our quest fanatical customer experience, right? And yeah, that may sound like a slogan or something like that, but I can tell you 90 days in, that's real, right?
Yeah.
And it's fun to be surrounded with people like that, because you do, even if you weren't wired that way, you end up getting wired to kind of think that way and take that culture forward. So those are my two main things that opened my eyes to Rackspace.
Mhm.
And once the team determined that I was a good fit, like I've been enjoying every minute of it.
That's great. Hey, it looks like you've got a friend, Joe Timmons. He wants to, it says Srini for
Mr.
POTUS. So you got a new job coming here in the next couple of years. You got to
Mis-
get
Mi-
campaigning.
Mr. Timmons is an awesome guy, man. Like he is, the guy knows everyone, and he is, spent time at Microsoft, at Google. We work together at Nationwide. We've stayed friends. Hey, Joe, say hi to Isabella and the newborn there.
That's great. Hey, one of the things you mentioned that really opened your eyes to Rackspace, especially once you got in, was the tech culture. Now, as any
Hmm.
company that's been around for, how long we've been here, 20 years now or so, 23 years, it's you ebb and flow certain things, but that was one of the things that really caught your attention and want to make it more. So, what are some of the
Yep.
things that you're doing to help inspire and deepen our tech culture here at
Yep.
Rackspace?
Yep. Well, you know what people say about culture. You've got all of the sayings, right? Culture eats strategy for breakfast.
That's right.
That's a Deming quote. Or, what you do, character and culture basically is like how you actually show up every day. Your actions determine the culture, not words on a wall.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the things that, as a technology company, we've gone through many of the things that many other organizations have had to go through the
Mhm.
pandemic, go through the pivots that you had to make from going from being a managed services OpenStack based company to a public cloud, private cloud company. And these things are not easy, right?
Mhm.
And one of the cool things here is that culture has kind of held together in spite of all of those things that we've had to go deal with. So the thing that I can do coming in, and what I'm trying to do coming in, is how do you make it more of a culture that's more sustainable, right? You'll see me use the word, whether it's in podcasts or in blog posts, you'll see me use sustainability over and over again. And my definition of sustainability is a little, well, it is broader, like the World Economic Forum that says green and environmental sustainability is absolutely important. But it's
Mhm.
equally important that if we're going to go into cloud and technology, that the economic sustainability is important. So meaning, you can't have the top 2, 3, 4% of the country get richer and richer, leaving the rest of the country behind, right? Now, so you got to figure out a way to make this economic gains that technology brings broader. That drives things like retraining people. It drives things like looking at underrepresented communities and how do you create opportunities for them to be in technology. That second economic component of sustainability. And to me, the third one is it also needs to be equitable. And both if any inherent or unintentional bias exists uh, in our algorithms, in our processes, if we talk about ML and AI, like the data has inherent bias in it. That you are absolutely very, very focused on addressing those biases is going to be important, because I think when you build that culture that keeps all three aspects of this sustainability in mind, then you become a destination for talent, right?
Yeah.
I think the current model that the IT industries, the technology industry is operating in is untenable, right? Because
Mhm.
when you have a scarce pool of resources, everybody fighting to pay like 50,000, 80,000 more to get a skill, right? And people jumping from role to role with 6 months and a year doesn't allow you to build the skills that are sustainable for the long run. It leaves a lot of people behind. So I
Yeah.
think part of our culture within Rackspace is I'm trying to reinvigorate it so that we build on the technical foundation, we build on that fanatical customer experience, but take a more long-term view to say, like, yes, we do need the experts, but we have to be committed to bringing people along, right? And if you do that, you you switch this whole dialogue from a dialogue of scarcity to abundance, right? And that scarcity drives costs up. We all know that. We're like,
Yep.
toilet paper goes up when something goes wrong. So scarcity drives certain things. Abundance drives a different set of behaviors. And to me, that's the switch that would love to do. Working and engaging the broader team to get that done.
Well, what a great mission. And I love the fact that it's not just how do we make people technically smarter, how do we make them get along better, but it really is that 360-degree sustainability view into it. So Srini, thank you so much for being a part of the program today. We've had lots of great interaction from your fan club out there and from the rest of the world. And so, of course, so glad that you chose to spend some time with me here today, but then also chose to come and volunteer your best for us here every day now at Rackspace. So thanks so much for that. And everyone, I hope that you have an amazing day. And we are back tomorrow with another Cloud Talk Live at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. We're back into our Women in Tech. And do we have a treat for you? You're going to absolutely want to be a part of that. So make sure you set your alarm for that. A really interesting woman who went from individual contributor to global vice president of customer success, incredibly short amount of time, and one of our great partners over at App Dynamics. If you're into software development, observability should be high on that list. Go check them out. They're pretty amazing. Srini, thanks again. And everyone, hope you have an amazing day.